Cover the Lotus's Eaters video on the Zimbabwe goblins. No one cares.
For $50?
Channel or Pim tool.
For $50? Say less. For $50?
I think we all understand and know that goblins are real. I think we've determined that this is the case. Goblins are real. They live amongst us. This much is obvious. And what I wanted to look at today is the terrible news that goblins have been terrorizing Zimbabwe. And I feel very sorry for Zimbabwe because no one, I think we all are familiar with goblins, right? No one wants to put up with this. This is a terrible and grave indiscretion. Also, we have a magazine. It does prepare you against goblin attack. Here is the glamorous assistant Stelios holding it up. Oh, I've taken it now. But he was holding it. Here it is, Islander. This guarantees 100% protection against goblins if you read it and imbibe its wisdom. So make sure to pre-order it because on the 17th, I believe, it's going to go off of sale. So you've got to pre-order it before it releases. Otherwise, you'll miss out from that 100% goblin guaranteed protection. So anyway, the reason I found out about this was actually something that Samson, our producer, put me onto. It was this story here. Police officers desert station citing Goblin.
Yo, they for the 50 Hajj tour. Hugely appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Attacks, and this was published at the end of May, so not too long ago. And I'm going to read a little bit from it. It says, a ward councillor confirmed an unusual situation. We built a police station for the officers.
Sorry, it was $69.99 Canadian. Sorry. Thank you.
Initially, they patrolled in pairs. Ngulani explained, however, they haven't been able to stay for extended periods. And this is, according to him...
So I think I get what this story's going to be already. Police officers deserted their stations and claimed goblins attacked them, but they didn't. They just deserted their stations.
Bodies being violated, doors opened on their own, and things climbing on the roof, making it impossible to sleep. And apparently, the police from Plumtree, which is where this police station is, withdrew the officers, stating they wouldn't endanger them further because they were worried they were going to get harassed, potentially sexually harassed by these goblins. Female goblins, of course, harassing the male police officers. And this is obviously a cause for concern. And this is just scratching the surface of the goblin problem, because this is March, so a month, 2 months prior, should I say. That's how the calendar works. Apparently, there was a family being terrorized in a similar province, right? So this is titled Horror Film Come to Life, Goblins Terrorize Bulawayo Family, Children Beaten, Food Vanishes. And
Sorry to interrupt the video, but I want to let you know that we've introduced a feature on the website that allows you to...
Shut up, you...
And waking up and your children's heads have been shaved.
By the goblins.
By the goblins, of course, yes. What else would it be? Let's be honest. The next day, our youngest child woke up in the middle of the night screaming. He had been stabbed in the leg with a knife. Okay, that's pretty serious. These goblins are getting out of control, aren't they, Stelios? He also woke up with his head shaved again. I mean...
Are they just barber goblins? You have deep goblins and stuff.
Well, all of these barbershops opening up in Britain is making me start to worry about, the introduction of goblins into our system, shaving.
There's a portal from a fantasy universe to our world.
So can I just establish what's going on here? Africans are being terrorized, having stuff stolen,
head shaved, being stabbed
and sexually assaulted by goblins.
Yes.
Well, I can empathise with their problem because here in Europe we're having the exact same thing, but it's not goblins doing it.
I know, yeah. Well, it's even more difficult for them.
Wow. Very funny stuff. Don't immigrants just be raping and stabbing us? Don't immigrants just be raping and stabbing us, guys? Huh? Hey? Anyone? Anyone been raped and stabbed by an immigrant recently? Anyone?
Because rather than tangible, physical people doing crimes, it's goblins which are magical in nature and therefore harder to...
and able to burrow away during the day.
Exactly. So they carry on to say
so
this
it's
family.
just lame and low IQ. It's
just
like dumb as fuck. Oh, we're having the same problem. Shut up, you fucking retard. Where have you been raped or stabbed? You lying fucking retard.
Worse than
no one you know has been raped or stabbed.
Inexplicably, our children's clothes, especially their uniforms. And
if they were raped, it was probably by either you or some other man in your family. Let's be totally serious. Statistically, that's the case.
Uniforms, I presume, would be torn. They were no longer able to attend school, so these goblins are preventing their children from being educated. They must be racist or something. We hired a spiritual healer for a cleansing ceremony. The following day, the house mysteriously burnt down. But only the bedrooms were affected. Everything in the kitchen and dining room was untouched, which is interesting. So the goblins, at least a little bit benevolent, don't want to ruin their kitchen and dining room, but just the bedrooms. So, furthering their war on education, they've terrorized schools, and I like this picture here. Presumably, this is something left behind by a goblin, like a talisman. It looks like some buck teeth that's really hairy with a sort of beaded chain, I suppose.
It looks like a goat that's walked into a fan.
It does, yes. But
this looks like a bad Stephen King short story monster.
But supposedly the school had to close because the teachers and children were too scared to go to school.
That's not an African fleshlight, is it?
There's a lot of tooth there for that. That would be very dangerous to use. But it's not the only school. So this was, I believe, 2022. There was also one in June of 2022 as well, and there's a different picture of some Goblin memorabilia here. Obviously,
this is not an isolated incident. Dozens of African news services are reporting on the Goblin phenomenon.
There are patterns that people are noticing.
So another school has been besieged, and it's been...
The Greek guy is the only funny guy on his. The only guy I like. See, it actually makes sense to compare goblins to Jace. That makes sense. And it was a funny, subtle joke that I think literally went over both of these guys' heads. Meanwhile, this guy has to stop the whole conversation to go, aren't immigrants raping people? Like, dude.
A problem. They say, this one here, saying that church and village leaders have been called for a cleansing ritual following alleged incidents of goblins sexually harassing teachers and students at the Majiji primary school in the Booby district of Matabeleland, North Province. And the decision was made by village heads, villagers and parents and school authorities at a meeting held last week to discuss the emergency of the reported goblins. So they're taking this very seriously. Obviously, all of the village leaders, all of the people in the local community are coming together to deal with this goblin menace. And it says, this is a direct quote here, the school headmistress asked the Apostolic Church to hold a night prayer at the school following a rise in number of teachers who had been sexually abused by goblins.
The Greek guy's the top one, this guy.
Apparently one of the members mixed salt and warm water and sprinkled the substance all around the classrooms to chase these goblins away. Because of course everyone knows that salt and warm water is how you deal with goblins. I mean,
this segment,
I want to see where this goes, because
this segment is reshaping my entire worldview. Because I thought that these were all problems that we were having in Europe, but it turns out Africa has this problem as well. Goblins.
And in fact, going back to 2013 here, 4 Zimbabwe schools closed because of the goblin problem. So there's also this story as well. This is the Daily Mail picking up on it. In 2012, female students sent home from Zimbabwean school after they claimed they'd been attacked and possessed by goblins. Not just attacked, but they're getting taken over by goblins. Apparently, this is the report of a parent. She fell into a trance and all of a sudden she started screaming and kicking into the air vigorously for about 5 minutes. She did not say anything during the fit. And when she recovered, she said she had seen a baboon trying to slap her.
So, was the baboon possessed by a goblin?
No. What it is that these goblins, also sometimes referred to as tokoloshis in the native language, can transform into things and can be invisible.
Shapeshifters.
Yeah, and sometimes they're only visible to the person they're harassing. And so it turning into a goblin and trying to into a baboon and trying to slap her makes perfect sense.
It can also make African school children. It can possess them and then make them behave atrociously and kick up an enormous fuss and just make the place intolerable.
Yes,
I see.
But also think of the possibilities, because students could be so bored of going to school and they could start saying that they're afraid of the goblins.
No. Children in Africa, Stelios, are really keen to go to school. They're not slacking off like Western children, because as we're reminded by the UN and lots of transnational corporations, African children want nothing more than to learn. Right?
I stand corrected.
So I won't.
What is the point of what he's saying there? He's just, is it just blacks don't want to learn, so we shouldn't bother giving them schools in Africa? Is that all he's trying to say? Is it really that fucking stupid? Dude, these people are just like so gay and annoying.
I won't hear any slander against the African work ethic here. So there's actually a video of the aftermath of a goblin attack here. And I'm going to turn the sound off because you don't need to hear it. And it's pretty low quality.
Do you hear the goblins?
You don't hear the goblins. You hear lots of people. But here they are. It's just some people sort of...
They're being attacked by goblins?
They seem a bit alarmed and startled, running away. You can't really see. But this lady's particularly frightened. I don't know what she's doing. Stretching the straps of her shirt over her head for some reason. Maybe the goblins are telling her to do it. But it carries on. Here they are running away. You can't really see because it's off camera. But you get the gist. I think there's someone lying on the floor in a sort of goblin-induced...
One cannot unsee the truth, and one cannot unsee the goblin.
Yeah, so obviously this is a very tangible and real thing. There they are, they're lying on the floor, there's something going on. Maybe they've been possessed by a goblin. But you get the general idea. But I did some digging.
Shocking
and
scenes.
It turns out that goblins have been a problem since at least the 50s. So this newspaper, from Bantu World, that's a newspaper, this was 1955, and this is the native name for a goblin. Goblin's perhaps a Western equivalent. But it's talking about them stopping a church service. So they've been interfering with religious matters.
How do you pronounce that? Their word?
Tokoloshi?
Tokokoshi.
Tokoloshi.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's getting even more sinister than that, right? So
this guy is such a fucking midwit. Tokoloshi? Right. That's all you've got to say after fucking 10 minutes of silence, you gormless mong, is it? Okay.
Recently, well, relatively recently, this was 2012. Since, the 50s, there was a case where 26 women woke up without undergarments, and they actually were discovered, it says, under the chief. I don't know whether it was found like under him or whether it was under his leadership. They went out and tried to find them, but it'd be interesting if the goblins planted it on the chief, to try and undermine his authority.
So the goblins are stealing women's underwear while they sleep and then piling it up at the local leader's house?
Not necessarily. It's unclear what the wording means, whether it's just under the leadership of the chief, they found the underwear, but they haven't specified where it was found, rather than it being found under the chief himself. But here we are. They were blamed, the goblins. They finally got the culprit. Thank goodness they found
Yeah,
who did
we get it, Babka. It's very tragic that all these kids are getting raped in Africa and then their parents and teachers and shit are blaming it on the goblins. We know. It's very, very tragic. Very tragic. It's also very funny, though, okay?
Because
that poor leader. I mean, it must be very unsettling for him to wake up and suddenly discover he's covered in women's underwear that goblins have put there.
I know, yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? And the fact they removed them while they were sleeping at night as well, that's quite an invasion of their privacy.
Yeah, this starts giving some very wrong vibes.
So at the more sinister end of the Goblin menace, there was a case in 2016 of a man who was tricked by goblins into stabbing his wife to death because he thought she was a goblin, and he was dreaming of getting attacked by goblins, which was obviously a goblin trick.
The goblins made me do it.
And he stabbed his wife to death with a chisel before stabbing himself.
Man escapes jail after stabbing his wife to death because he thought she was a goblin. Holy fuck.
Himself in the neck and shouting for his neighbours to come and help.
Why would the goblins do this?
I don't know why the goblins would do this, but it's because of their evil nature, I think. There's something about the goblins that just leads them to do really terrible things, and it's a horrible thing
I mean, presumably
for this man and obviously his dead wife to go through.
But presumably there's not a lot of goblins. It's just a small hog. I mean,
there are small sort of cases of them. It's enough that it's a sort of menace on Zimbabwe.
Right. But I mean, what are you talking about? They make up like 13% of the population or something?
It may well be that it's about 13% of all the problems are caused by these goblins, yeah.
Again, the least funny racial humor you've ever fucking heard. The Stelios guy owns these retards. Dude.
Cases of them. It's enough that it's a sort of menace on Zimbabwe.
Right. But I mean, what are you talking about? They make up like 13% of the population or something?
It may well be that it's about 13% of all the problems are.
So he says they make up about 13% of the population. So comparing goblins to black people. Already a poor comparison. Goblins, we don't generally compare goblins to black people. Those aren't two things that we see as similar. So it's a bad comparison. It's a bad joke initially. And then this fucking idiot on the bottom, this fucking idiot behind my Quiggler, this fucking moron, says, yeah, you'd say they're responsible for about 13% of all the problems. No, retard, it would be 50% of all the problems, you stupid fuck. Dude, it's so fucking annoying.
Caused by these goblins, yeah.
But maybe something like closer to 50% of the crime.
Well, it seems like it's a large portion, yeah, perhaps even greater than that.
Right.
So there's good news. You can fight back against the Goblin menace because there was a clinic in Zimbabwe in 2013 that was cleared of goblins. They had a cleansing ritual in the clinic, although the nurses were hesitant to return to the clinic because the association with the goblins, of course. And there's this wonderful...
You just don't want to live near them. You do not want to live near goblins because they just ruin everything.
So there's actually a ritual that can be done here. This is a report from a prophet in Prophet Siziba. So this is obviously a very noble man.
Siziba the Wise.
Yes, a man of God who, through his faith alone and not donations, is able to fight against this goblin menace. And he said, I had to prepare. That is the reason we spent the night sleeping and praying. I had to set traps because if I had not done, that goblin was going to kill me, he says. A goblin has a powerful spirit, so we had to we had prayer for the chicken so that by the time the goblin died, the spirit would move from the goblin into the chicken rather than a person. Because when you kill a goblin, obviously the spirit
has a powerful
spirit. You don't want it to latch onto a person.
But if you put it in a chicken, you
yes,
contain the goblin problem.
Yes, exactly. And at the end of it, you have a dangerous chicken. I don't know whether you can eat the chicken. They don't specify. Maybe you've just got to kill the chicken and bury it somewhere far away. I don't know. I don't
Catapulted or something.
Maybe. But there was also a bit of a scandal with this sort of exorcism, goblin exorcism, because there was Jameson whiskey involved. And they says, and the prophet says about the Jameson whiskey that was involved in this exorcism, as for the Jameson bottles, it was just a coincidence because all we wanted were empty bottles where we put our prayers. The bottles would explode as a signal for us to go ahead. So he wasn't drinking them. He wasn't, a bottle of whiskey down.
If I'm getting this right, when Africans are around large quantities of empty alcohol bottles, that somehow causes the goblins to manifest.
Potentially. But he's saying that the goblins actually don't like the empty bottles because they contain the prayers, which then defeat the goblins.
I see.
So if you empty the bottle of the whiskey and then fill it with prayers, it actually fights the goblins.
Yes, that does make sense now, yes.
So there has also been some research into this goblin phenomenon, and there are lots of African women who believe that goblins also give them cervical cancer. And there's the quote here at the top of the research paper, goblins left dirt in my birth canal. And basically it reports lots of people who believe that goblins leave dirt in their birth canals, which gives them cervical cancer. Because these goblins terrorize lots of women, the cervical cancer spreads between lots of different women, because everyone knows that that's how it works, obviously.
Because, I mean, there is no other way that dirt could have got there. So, yeah. So it must be goblins.
Absolutely. So,
remarkable.
To sort of break the gag now, what is actually going on with this goblin stuff? I don't actually believe in goblins.
Well, you made a really strong case for it. I mean,
it's true.
No, Josh, who said that once you eliminate the impossible, the only interpretation that exists, however implausible, is the truth? So goblins
I'm not having it. There's goblins in Africa.
Okay, well, my explanation, because, being a man of science, I've got to come up with alternative explanations.
Right there.
That is true. However,
it's published.
That's true. However, I think there is an alternative explanation here, because the people of Zimbabwe largely come from the same ethnic group, which is they're a tribe. I can't remember the exact name, but they are Bantu in origin. And if we go to this is the Bantu expansion, and it shows you the dates that the Bantus of West Africa moved eastwards and southwards. And here we have it's the Shona people. Sorry, they're the ethnic majority in Zimbabwe, and their path south and east would have gone through.
There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that.
Certain lands which contain Pygmies. Pygmies, obviously very small.
Yes.
Hunter-gatherers, right? They had a different lifestyle to these Bantu-speaking people, and Bantu ethnic people, should I say. And so perhaps...
But when the Bantus moved down across Africa, I mean, presumably they integrated harmoniously with the tribal people that they found.
No, they didn't. They killed them. That's what happened.
Right.
But they might have come into contact with the Pygmies in places like what is now the modern-day Congo and Central Africa. And the small people that would have appeared and disappeared into the forest like it was, second nature to them, and may have sort of made their migration difficult, might be the source of these invisible people that are terrorizing them and carrying out these mischievous attacks upon them that don't really amount to much, because, of course, they're hunter-gatherers against an agricultural society. And so there's only so much they could do. And because, this migration was BC, right, it was thousands of years of communication has turned this into a sort of mythical story as opposed to, a perfectly explainable one.
Are there any Pygmies still around? Has anyone still
got... Yes, there are. They still live in hunter-gatherer tribes to this day in remote rainforests and things like that.
Well, I want to meet one.
Really?
Yes, I want to meet a Pygmy. If anyone's got one, get in touch.
We'll fly you out to Africa.
Yes, I want to meet one.
I think it is smoked whiskey that works best with goblins. From Isle of Isla. Yeah.
So that is my charitable explanation. That's saying, okay, maybe there's a grain of truth to this. And here's my uncharitable explanation to this goblin phenomenon. There are the Pygmy villages, by the way. There's a map of them.
Oh, look.
Yeah, there they are.
I can...
Yeah, it's the blue ones. That's where you can go.
I don't really want to go to the DRC.
You can go to Cameroon. But anyway, this story, I think...
Why can't the Pygmies be the people who are coming over on the boats and being the Deliveroo drivers? That'd be hilarious if your pizza was delivered by a Pygmy.
Well, they're hunter-gatherers, so they're not really going to get along well with a bicycle or apps or the modern world.
I don't know, I think there's something in this.
But anyway, this is my uncharitable explanation. This is a story about a sorcerer, a village sorcerer, obviously. We know them as witch doctors in the West, but they're sorcerers, really.
Like Fauci.
Yeah, exactly. Village sorcerer Fauci. So there was an explosion, which was blamed on goblins. This killed 6 people, and this was in 2013. So 6 people died from this explosion, which was obviously caused by goblins, and it was a ceremony that's trying to purify the goblins. He chopped off the head of
I have played, I think I saw
goblin. This is the actual story. And the goblin exploded, which killed people. Well, actually, an investigation found out that they were trying to extract mercury from landmines to sell on the black market for a sizable amount of money. And they blamed it on goblins because they were doing naughty things. They were doing things that's illegal in Zimbabwe.
Doesn't mercury poisoning give you powerful hallucinogenic effects?
I'm not sure. It may well do. But if they're extracting mercury from landmines, it would be awfully coincidental that a goblin just happened to explode when they're dealing with explosives, isn't it? And that it's a socially acceptable story in Zimbabwe that they can, get away with, although they did face consequences in this case because they were found out. And,
I'm now starting to wonder if I'm looking at the Lord of the Rings in a completely different light. Is it possible that J.R. Tolkien went to a Pygmy village and just did a lot of ayahuasca?
He's a well-travelled man. We can't rule it out, can we?
It's just like the least funny commentary. Let this fucking mug explain that it's just people blaming shit on goblins, obviously. You are not funny, you fucking moron.
But it's worth mentioning as well that it's not just me that's onto this Goblin Menace. My stream deck's not working. But Lord Miles, who has been on this podcast before, posted about 5k likes, and I'll drive 8 hours to interview the village being terrorized by goblins. And there's 27,000 there. So he went
I'm so glad Lord Miles left the UK. Holy fuck, I'm glad people like that gone from my country.
Did it? And he went to the village. There he is.
There he is,
fucking
gone.
With one of the villagers.
Out.
And apparently he's got a video on the way. So maybe he's going to help me unveil this Goblin Menace in Zimbabwe.
He went to Goblinville.
Exactly.
You can't read out that middle bit.
No, I'm not going to. However, just as a final point, this is a government website, and within this it says British nationals live in about 15,000 live in Zimbabwe, whereas 112,000 Zimbabweans live in the UK. So my message to all of you at home, if you live in Britain, is that if 112,000 Zimbabweans are here, who's to say they haven't brought their goblins with them? I mean, these goblins are dangerous. We've seen they kill people, they assault people sexually.
Well, they steal your underwear.
They steal your underwear.
And they give it to
people,
Zimbabwe.
potentially. Exactly. And so they do all of these terrible things. Perhaps we need to be a bit more cautious when dealing with these people because of the goblins, obviously. And yes, I wanted to draw attention to this plight because it's a very important topic that doesn't see the light of day very often.
Crime went goblin mode.
It did indeed.
Good God, that was a powerful segment, Josh. Well done.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Load Seaters. And if you want to see more of what we're doing, what you want to do is pre-order this lovely magazine.
Wow. Well, that was atrocious, I gotta say. Thank you for the recommendation, Max. The Goblin stuff is funny, but holy fuck, I hate these presenters. Lotus Eaters is actually one of the worst fucking podcasts, man. That middle guy, the token veteran host.